Hey, what's up, guys? Hey, thank you so much for signing up for our Rugby Beginners Masterclass. First things first, let me address this. I had a combine with the Chicago Hounds the other day, so got a little cleat to my eye there. So, I'm out here working as much as you guys are. I'm still playing myself while providing as much education and resources as possible. So, point is, couldn't be more excited for you guys to be here joining me for our beginner class. So, first thing that we want to look at is our overview. Here, we're basically just going to take a look at our rugby positions, some basic rules, and the equipment needed. But first, I want to talk about the mindset and identity shift that comes with signing up. So I couldn't be more excited for the fact that you're here with me right now. What that tells me is that you're a student of the game. You're here to learn the game. And there's a huge gap between what we currently know and what we need to know in order to succeed as rugby players. And if you take on the mindset of a beginner and a learner, then you will be successful in your rugby career as you progress from beginner, intermediate to advanced. And at some point, like you're gonna end up competing with some of the top people in your area. So hats off to you. And I really want to highlight the identity shift that comes with being part of a program like this. The school community we're building is huge, and we have such a vision laid out that I just know and I trust that you're going to get so much value out of the community itself and this master class. So let's go ahead and get into things. Starting off with our positions, there's 15 positions, there's 15 players on the field in a given match for rugby union. So that's what we're going to run through here. What are our physical requirements, our skill requirements, and what are our roles on the field for each of these positions? An easy way to break this up is 1 through 8 are our forwards, and then 9 through 15 are all of our backs. So if you're playing American football, it might be easy to think about our forwards are basically our linemen, and then our backs are basically our skill positions, like your quarterbacks, your wide receivers, your running backs, and those players. So 1 and 3 are our props. Those are going to be your biggest players on the field. Their primary role is to maintain scrums. We want to win scrums, and they're going to be at the front in the pack. That's going to be their biggest role. Whenever we're in open play, we need them to crack the gain line as often as possible. Because of their size, we just need them to get strong go forward. And then defensively, we need dominant tackles from them. So they should really be a brick wall that you just can't break through. And those are our props. Hooker has very similar responsibilities when it comes to open play for attack and defense. We still want really strong carries with ball in hand. And defensively, we still want that brick wall. But his role in the scrum is going to be hooking the ball back towards our team so that we can win possession of the scrum. So he's going to be binding on to the props next to him. So it'll go prop, hooker, prop in that front row in the scrum. And then in lineouts, he's generally going to be throwing. Whenever you see those overhead throws from the sideline, that's the hooker throwing in. 4 and 5 are our locks, and they're generally going to be a lot taller. That's primarily because in lineouts, they're going to be the ones going up to jump for winning the lineout. Still very similar roles on the field. We want strong go forward, and we want strong defensive presence. All of these players, we still need some catch and pass ability, not so wide like you'll see in the backs, but being able to just tip off the shoulder and have basic catch pass skills. 6 and 7 are our flankers. These guys are they're going to be as strong as the rest of the forwards, but the size isn't necessarily as needed. Obviously, like you do need some size, but ultimately you can think of these as the dogs of the team. A lot of the work rate comes from flankers. So being able to get out of a scrum as quickly as you can and get back in game as quickly as possible. So defensively, because they have the work rate, we need a lot of defensive turnovers from them. So dominating the tackle and also getting back up on your feet and poaching the ball, which we'll talk about later. A lot of the terminology, if you're not familiar with it right now, we'll go over it later. But just to give you an idea, they're going to be strong. They have great conditioning, great work rate, and they're dominant in attack and defense. 8-man, very similar role, but he's going to be at the back, so the back of the scrum. So he'll be a bit more involved with set pieces off of the scrum. So just meaning he's going to get his hands on the ball. Generally, very basic play would be an 8-man pick. So the scrum is done. We win possession. He picks the ball up and goes straight into contact, right? And there's a lot of things that you can do off of that, but 8-man, still very similar work rate, maybe a bit bigger than flankers, but we need to be able to dominate physically in attack and defense and still have that catch pass ability. So that reviews all of our forwards. All right, we just reviewed our forwards, and now we're going to take a look at all of our backs. So again, these are our skill positions. If you want to compare it to American football, these guys are a lot faster. We need skills between catch pass, kicking, offloading, and reading the field. And a lot more game management comes from these positions. So if you hear the word like game drivers, that generally has to do with our 9 and 10s. Wingers, we need to be fast. Those are our finishers. Centers, we can be distributing centers or gain line centers. And then fullback is just another distributor, very similar to fly half. So if we really want to break this down, scrum halves, another name for scrum half, our number 9 is a halfback. And scrum halves are, but they're going to be navigating the flow, the direction of which we're playing. So a scrum half, we need a very nice, crisp pass. We need to be anticipating the next phases. So not only getting to this breakdown, but anticipating what are we going to do next after this tackle is made and playing accordingly. You're also going to be managing a lot of the forwards, telling where to be at, when to be at, and organizing a lot of those players. These guys, they don't need to be nearly as big. There's a lot of really good scrum halves that, they could be as small as like 5'3", 5'4". So size isn't necessary, but what is necessary is a great pass, just a straight laser to your target. And the faster that ball gets to your first receiver, the better. So going into number 10, our fly half, I would say this is more of the quarterback of the team. A lot of the information is being fed outside in to the fly half. And at the same time, he's organizing a lot of players as well. He needs to have a great kick on him because a lot of our clearance kicks or high balls or, conversions, restarts, it generally comes from 10. It can float between any of the players, but being at first receiver, especially to exit the ball to find touch, that's a time that you want your fly half to have that boot on him. Fly halves, they're still going to be very, very good on their feet, have a good work rate, a lot of conditioning, and a very strong presence in terms of the team leadership. So a lot of the players, because they're playing off of 10, just meaning they're reacting to his movements and his directions. He needs to know what's going on. And if you don't have a strong presence on the field, then it's hard to organize because a lot of the play comes through 10. So fly half, and that's kind of why I say like fly half is really the quarterback of the team. Otherwise, for our wingers, these are our finishers. Positions 11 and 14, they're out here on the edges, and they're going to be the last one to touch the ball on the edge. But when they touch the ball, they have to go score. They have to snatch some ankles. They have to go forward. Defensively, it can be pretty difficult playing on the wing, especially when moments that you get isolated, because if you get stuck on an island and it's a 3v1 or a 2v1 against you on the wing, it can be very difficult to finish the tackle, to maintain the defensive line, because if they get past you, then the only person scraping across the top is the fullback. So you're really the last line of defense, and yet sometimes it's not even your fault that you get scored on. A lot of times it's like 2-3 phases beforehand, and we didn't fold from the inside out, but everyone sees the wing that misses the tackle and they go score. So it's very, very polarizing being on both ends. Like on one end, you're the hero, you're scoring, and everyone looks up to you. And then on the other end, you just got scored on because you made one missed tackle, and everyone wants to point the finger at you. So you can experience the extremes of both sides of that. Next, we have our 12s and 13s. And that's our inside and outside center. Centers are going to be the closest thing that we have to a forward in the back line, because these are generally going to be the biggest players in the back line. So some size, like a lot of size, some height, and very dominant both in attack and defense. So inside center, you're more of a distributor. I would say you really have more of the playmaking ability between the two centers. So you'll have more responsibility to shift the ball, to make good reads, good decisions, and help navigate the forwards, place them exactly where they need to be, so that we have our proper depth, our proper width, and organizing the big boys in front of us so that they don't have to think themselves. Centers can also be very dominant in their size, so they don't necessarily need to be that distributor, but sometimes 12s can just be, their role is just to punch the ball forward, very similar to what forwards are doing. And I would say that's almost what your outside center, it's a lot more of what he's responsible for. So he'll do the same thing that the forwards are doing, but he'll hit it in the outside channels. So he needs size, but he also needs to have fast feet in order to make people miss, to try and beat defenders, create a 2v1, get the ball to your wing to let him go score. So I think I would really say like 13 is probably the hardest position to play defensively, especially off of set pieces, because I know how we just talked about the wing, you're the last man in defense, and if you get beat, everyone sees it. But it's generally because, very generally speaking, 13, you're second to the edge, so you're right next to the wing, and when we're in defense, their attack is really based off of what decision we make as a outside center. So if we decide to bite down and then they pass the ball out wide, now we're chasing to go catch up with the play, and then they're gone. And other times, maybe we recognize that they want to play the ball wide, and then they hit the down line, they split our centers, and they beat us up the gut. So there's a lot of decision making made from the outside center. And I would say the biggest difference between the two of them is that I think 12, you can get away with more direct play and just relying on your size and then your distributing ability. Whereas 13, you want in your outside center, you really want that size, but it needs to be coupled with some agility, some fast feet, some footwork, and proper decision making in both an attack and defense. Lastly, our fullback. This is really your punt returner, at least defensively. So he's going to be back and he's talking to the wings constantly. You'll often see a pendulum defense for your back three. back three just meaning both wings and your fullback. So you're connecting in your three, and as the ball moves towards one wing, you rotate over the top. That opposite side wing drops back, so then you have two back, one wing up. Then when the ball works back across, that wing that was up now drops back. We scrape over to the other side, and that other wing goes up. Hopefully that makes sense. That's a big role between the back three. Otherwise, he still has a very similar responsibility to the fly half. So some teams, they'll really play with two distributors on the team, one being the fly half and one being the fullback, where the fullback might just take one side of the field, fly half takes the other side of the field. So he could really insert in as that quarterback position, or he could play a lot more aggressively. If you have the size, height is going to be really good. If you're tall and you're going up for those high balls whenever you're catching them, that's going to be really good. But you could also use that size to hit more down lines. So trying to break the gain line and just play what's in front of you. So you have a lot more freedom in this position, that you're not restricted to like one side of the field as a wing is, but you still need a lot of game understanding, game awareness, and I'd really say it's a very important position on the field. Next, we have basic rules. So rugby union, at least in 15s, you're going to have two teams of 15 players. So ultimately 30 players on the pitch plus a referee, and with 31 people on the field, you just imagine just how chaotic that gets. And there's a reason that they call it a bar fight with the referee, because it's just chaos and everyone's doing the best that they can to organize. So your first rugby match, probably going to be overwhelmed, probably going to forget where you shouldn't be, and you're going to make mistakes, but I promise you it's going to make sense at some point, and you're going to grow, and you're going to have the most fun in your life. It's an 80-minute match, and in those 80 minutes, it's split between two halves, two 40-minute halves, with generally 10 minutes between halves. So that way you have, anytime you get a score, you get 5 points. So football, it's easy to reference American football. It's generally 6 points for a touchdown and 1 for the PAT. In rugby, you get 5 points for the touchdown, or we call it a try, and then 2 points for the PAT, or for us, the conversion. And it's actually funny because the term touchdown actually comes from rugby. So for us, you physically have to touch the ball down to the ground. Because football came from rugby, they used that same terminology and carried it over. So a little bit of history there for you. So yeah, like I mentioned, you just have an attempt after scoring to get an additional 2 points from your conversion. The game is played by only passing the ball laterally or backwards. So there's no forward passes. The only time you can send the ball forwards is if you're kicking. And even then, you have to be on sides. So an onside player is from the kicking player here. You have to be behind the kicker before that ball goes, and then you can go chase it. No blocking allowed. So you can kind of get away with like shoulder checking. So if I'm running my line and the ball goes out the back, which might not make sense for you right now, me saying these words, but hopefully it'll make sense down the line. I can run my line and shoulder check someone on my way through, and because I'm running my line. I'm not blocking, but I'm running my line. And if I just happen to run into somebody, I can keep the interior defense tight, slow them down a little bit if we're trying to play to the outside. Hopefully that makes sense. There's a variety of phases, including lineouts, mauls, rucks, and scrums, and these are all to retain possession during play. So possession is so important. It's so vital in order to play this game, because obviously if you don't have the ball, then you can't score. Like I mentioned before, kicking is the only way that both teams can move the ball forward. So Again, like passing, you can only go laterally or backwards, but kicking, that's when we can get it downfield. Then there's also penalties that you can opt to make different decisions. One of which is if you choose to kick a conversion or a penalty kick, then if you make that, you get 3 points and you get the ball back. So kind of different from other sports that if you score or make points in any way that you have to give up possession. In rugby, it's make it, take it. So if I score a try, then I get the ball back. Whether I make the conversion or not, it doesn't matter. I still get the ball back. Same goes for those penalty kicks. If I get my 3 points, ball goes between the post and over the crossbar, then it's good, and we get the ball back on top of those 3 points. All right, what equipment do you need in order to play rugby for your first rugby match? You need your team kit. That includes your jersey, your shorts, and your socks. On top of that, you need cleats. Most often, you'll find anytime you'll go on any rugby cleat websites, you'll see attached at the end, it says SG or FG. SG meaning soft ground, FG meaning firm ground. The difference is if you have soft ground cleats, you're going to have metal studs in the cleats, and the studs are going to be a little bit longer. So that's going to allow you to grip into the ground. Imagine like you're playing in mud and you have short studs on. You're going to slip really easily because that mud is just going to get in between the each of the studs. But with longer studs, you can grip more of the ground and really dig in there so that you're not slipping nearly as easily. Firm ground, complete opposite. Number one, they're going to be plastic and they're going to be molded to the cleat, so they're not removable like the metal studs are on the soft ground cleats. And on top of that, not only are they shorter, but they're also going to be lighter because they're made of plastic. So if you're a back, you probably want to be playing with the firm ground cleats. Whereas as a forward, you probably want soft ground because you're going to be digging in the scrums anyways. And if your feet slip, then you're kind of useless. So you want to make sure that you have a firm grip into the ground whenever you're playing. So just consider the conditions that you're playing in, consider the position that you play, and the turf that you're going to be playing on. Those are all 3 factors when deciding whether to choose soft ground cleats or firm ground cleats. You need a mouth guard. I need a mouth guard. I found this out Choctaw, Oklahoma, literally a month, maybe 2 months ago. I'm playing sevens. It's the last game of the day. And for some reason, I normally keep my mouth guard in my sock, and for some reason wasn't there. So I was like, whatever. I've played with a mouth guard without a mouth guard before. It's no big deal. Turns out it was a big deal because I chipped a molar, this back molar on my back left tooth. And it was because my teeth, like my jaw slammed against the roof of my mouth. And I literally just felt my tooth crumble inside my mouth. I literally spit it out into my hand, and like it was literally my tooth. And can't exaggerate how painful it is when you even like ignore like food or anything hard, but like literally water getting back there. It's so sensitive. It sucks. I'm not gonna lie, it sucks. And on top of that, I had to front $500 to go get that tooth filled. So and on top of the time that it took, and get a mouth guard. It takes $20. 15, $20. I use a Sisu mouth guard. They're very small. They allow you to breathe and talk. And it's a mouth guard that you actually have to like pull out of your mouth. A lot of other mouth guards, you have to they'll kind of just fall out of your mouth naturally. So you got to actively keep it in your teeth. Sisu, Sisu, they're really good. I'm not even, no sponsor or anything. That's just what I use, and I like it a lot. Back to cleats, I use New Balance if anyone cares to check out some New Balance cleats. Optional is scrum cap. I started wearing scrum cap just over a year ago because I split this eyebrow open 3 times, this one once, and I had staples in my head 2 summers ago, And, it's very similar to a mouth guard. Would you rather spend $20 on a mouth guard or $500 on getting your tooth filled? I would rather get I think it's probably like a $40-$50 scrum cap instead of spending $125 on staples, $100 on stitches, and, list goes on. It's optional. It's not necessary. But it's really good for forwards, especially because in your binds in the scrum, you got a lot of friction going on, wedging your head in the scrum. So you just can prevent some cauliflower ear. And I would recommend everyone should get a scrum cap, especially for all the lacerations that come. You can also use tape. You can get boosters. Boosters are generally going to they're like sausages, and they go right under, or I should say right above your kneecaps. And that allows jumpers in the lineouts to get boosted easier. So if I'm lifting someone, I can put my hand right on the booster, right on the sausage that's wrapped around his thighs, and I can lift him up just that much easier. Again, optional, but this is all the equipment that you'll need in order to play your first rugby match. Congratulations. You made it to the end of the first section of the beginner masterclass. Seriously, congratulations. This is stuff that not everybody is willing to sit through, but you chose to sit through it. You chose to listen. You chose to learn today. And that speaks on your character. That speaks on what your goals are. That speaks on your willingness and drive to improve as a player. And the biggest gap between where you are now and where you want to be is the knowledge of the game that you don't understand. That's something that I wish I would have understood sooner, because I was a type of player that I wanted to learn. I wanted to get better, but I didn't know how necessarily. And so I was just working with what I did know. And what I knew really well was the gym. I knew how to get strong. I knew how to lift weights. And I think that limited me, because, if you've got a couple buckets to fill, and if all the buckets are full, and that's like a perfect rugby player, I was overfilling this one bucket over here and ignoring these other two. Like the physical one was taken care of, but the skills, the IQ, that wasn't taken care of. So seriously, our job from here forward is to take action. At the end of every module, we are here to take action. So your job, your next action step, is to continue watching this course and learning. It doesn't even specifically need to be this course, but look at all of our resources. If you're a back, take a look at our backs resources. Inside there, you can find skills training sessions. You can find in the Ultimate Rugby Athlete Protocol, you can find gym sessions. You can go out and sprint. You can go do whatever, but go take action, whether it's for your physical development, your skill development, or if you got time today and you can burn through this entire masterclass, do it, because that's gonna fill the bucket of your rugby IQ. On top of that, take everything that we just talked about here and have conversations with friends and teammates and coaches about what you've learned. That way you're not just hearing it once and then forgetting about it, but rather you can go take this out and implement it. Oh, I didn't know anything about scrum caps, or I didn't know anything about how to play fullback, or whatever the case is. You can then start a conversation about it with your coach to say, I'm pretty fast, but I recognize I need to get better catch pass, and I want to learn the structure of the game a bit better so that I can play fullback. Like, how can you help me? Boom. Now you have coach on your side. He knows that you're interested in playing fullback instead of wing, or whatever the case is. Just go take action, and let's keep burning through all of these modules. You're going to get so much out of this, and on to the next lesson.